Laughter. Hi, I'm Isla. Today I'm going to read you the story of Kelly, which is titled, like this. My sister and her husband turned the whole family against me because I refused to pay for her son's college and bought a house instead. You had no right to buy a place for yourself without telling us, they said. So I cut all ties with them. Well, let's go. I've always had a plan. While everyone around me seemed to live for the moment, I kept my eyes on the future. My name is Kelly. I'm 27 years old, and for the past 5 years, I've been saving every penny for a down payment on a house. It hasn't been easy. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment with rent that eats up too much of my monthly income, but I make it work. I take extra shifts at the marketing firm where I work as a content manager. I haven't been on vacation in years. My wardrobe consists of exactly 7 work outfits and 5 casual ones. All mix and match. I know because I calculated exactly how many clothes I needed for a year. My family thinks I'm insane. Kelly, are you wearing that blue blouse again? My sister Olivia asked. During our last family barbecue, I swear you had that thing when Obama was president. Olivia is 40, married to Rick, and they have a 17-year-old son. Jack, she's always been the golden child. Sociable, outgoing, the life of every family gathering. I'm not. It still fits, and it's not torn, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral while scraping potato salad onto my plate. Why would I buy another one? Because normal people don't wear the same clothes for a decade. Olivia laughed, looking around for support. My dad chuckled. Are Kelly always pinching pennies? You know you can't take it with you when you die, right? I'm not planning on dying anytime soon, I said. Just planning on having my own home someday. Mom sighed dramatically. Wouldn't it be nice if you were planning on giving us grandchildren? Instead, Olivia already gave us Tyler, and here you are, 30 years old and not even dating. I bit my tongue. This was the usual script at family gatherings. Olivia would mock my frugality. Dad would pile on, and Mom would bring up my lack of children. They knew I was saving for a house, but somehow that wasn't a valid life goal in their eyes. Tyler's almost ready for college, Olivia said proudly, changing the subject. He's been looking at some really good schools. That's great, I said, genuinely happy for my nephew. Tyler was a good kid despite his parents. Smart and kind, he never joined in when they mocked me. Later that evening, as I was helping Mom with the dishes, she touched my arm. Honey, your father and I need to replace our washing machine. It's making that terrible noise again. Could you maybe help us out? Just a small loan until next month. It wasn't the first time. Small loans for appliances, home repairs, car troubles. I'd heard it all before. And despite saving for my house, I always said yes. Family helps family, right? How much do you need? I asked, already reaching for my purse. Just $30, Mom said. Well, pay you back soon. I knew they wouldn't, but I handed over the cash anyway. $300 meant another month of wearing that blue blouse Olivia had mocked. 2 weeks later, Olivia called Kelly. I need a favor. Tyler wants to take this programming course over the summer. It's perfect for his college applications. How much? I asked, skipping the pretense. $800, Olivia said. It's an investment in his future. I transferred the money that night, eating ramen for dinner to remind myself that every sacrifice was bringing me closer to my goal. That's how it had been for years. I'd sacrifice. They'd mock me for it, then ask for money. And through it all, I kept a spreadsheet tracking my progress toward a down payment. I wasn't just dreaming about a house. I was working methodically toward it. Last week, I hit my target number. 5 years of overtime, no vacations, careful budgeting, and saying no to everything, except family requests had finally paid off. I had enough for a down payment on a modest home. I couldn't stop smiling. Every time I checked my savings account balance, I decided to share the good news at Sunday dinner. Maybe now they'd understand why I'd been so frugal all these years. Maybe they'd even be happy for me. I drove to my parents' suburban home with a bottle of sparkling cider to celebrate. I couldn't afford champagne, not with a mortgage in my immediate future, but I wanted to mark the occasion. When I arrived, Olivia's SUV was already in the driveway. I took a deep breath, grabbed the cider, and headed inside. There she is. Dad called from the living room. We were just talking about you. That didn't sound good. I forced a smile and walked in. Mom was in the kitchen. Olivia and Rick sat on the couch and Tyler was nowhere to be seen. We sat down for dinner and I waited for the right moment to share my news. Dad had just finished telling a story about his golf buddy when I cleared my throat. I actually have some exciting news to share. I've been. Actually, Olivia interrupted. We have some pretty big news ourselves. Tyler got accepted to Westlake University. That's amazing, I said, genuinely impressed. Westlake was prestigious. Congratulations. Olivia beamed with pride. It's his dream school. He's going to study computer science. He's going to make something of himself, Rick added. First one in my family to go to college. I smiled. That's really great. So, as I was saying, the thing is, Olivia interrupted again, her voice shifting to a more serious tone. Westlake is expensive. Like, really expensive. $50,000 a year, Olivia said, her eyes fixed on me expectantly. The casserole turned to ash in my mouth. $50,000 per year. I set my fork down, slowly trying to process what my sister was saying. That's a lot of money, I managed to say. Rick nodded. For years. So about 200 grand total, but it's Westlake. The connections alone are worth it. I glanced around the table. Mom and Dad were oddly quiet, focusing intently on their food. Something felt off, like I was missing part of the conversation that had happened before I arrived. How are you planning to pay for it? I asked. Olivia. That's when it happened. All of them, Olivia, Rick, Mom, and Dad, looked at me at the exact same moment. Their faces were a blend of expectation and something else. Entitlement. I felt a chill run down my spine. Well, Olivia said slowly, we've been talking about it as a family. Dad cleared his throat. Kelly, you've always been so good with money, so responsible. Mom reached across the table and patted my hand. We know you've been saving for years now. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. I pulled my hand away from Mom's. Wait, are you suggesting that I pay for Tyler's college? Not all of it, Rick said quickly. Just the first year. Or two. We'd figure something out after that. I laughed. I couldn't help it. This had to be a joke. You're not serious. But their faces told me they were dead serious. My dream of home ownership, which had been so close, I could practically feel the keys in my hand, was being casually dismantled over Sunday dinner. Kelly, Olivia said, her voice taking on that condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. We know. You have the savings and it's not like you have a family to support. I'm buying A house, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the anger building inside.
Me.
That's what I've been saving for. That's what I've been telling all of you. For years. Mom sighed deeply. A house is just a thing, Kelly. Family is what matters. Tyler is your nephew. And he's your grandson. I shot back. And Olivia. And Rick's son. Why is his education suddenly my financial responsibility? Olivia's face hardened. Because you can afford it. You've got what? $100,000 saved up. That's more than enough for a down payment in Tyler's first 2 years. The fact that they'd clearly discussed my finances and done the math without me made me feel physically ill. I pushed my plate away, no longer hungry. I've been saving for 5 years, I said. 5 years of overtime and no vacations and buying nothing I didn't absolutely need. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked for this?
Oh, please.
Olivia rolled her eyes.
It's
not like you've been working in a coal
mine.
You sit at a desk all day. Rick leaned forward. Look, Kelly, we're not asking for a handout. This is an investment in Tyler's future.
He's
family. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm not giving you my house money. I can't believe you would even ask. Dad's face darkened.
Now,
you listen here, young lady.
We've
supported you your whole life. Supported
me?
I was almost shouting now. You've mocked me for years for being frugal, made fun of my clothes, my lifestyle, choices. And now you want the money I
saved.
Money you've been borrowing from for years without paying back.
Mom
started to cry. Her go-to tactic whenever she was losing an argument. How can you be so selfish? Don't you care about your nephew's future? I grabbed my purse from the counter. I care about Jack. He's a great kid, but his college fund should have been your responsibility, not an afterthought you're trying to dump on
me.
I walked toward the door, my whole body shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. You're greedy and selfish. Olivia shouted after me. We've always known it, but this proves it. You'll regret this, Kelly. That was Rick. His voice booming through the house. I heard Mom sobbing dramatically and Dad cursing. As I slammed the front door behind me, my hands trembled so badly I could barely get my key into the ignition. I drove aimlessly for a while, trying to process what had just happened. My own family had ambushed me, trying to guilt me into giving up my dream. The worst part was they genuinely seemed to believe they were entitled to my money. Eventually, I pulled into a small cafe downtown. I needed to calm down before going home. Inside, I ordered a cup of chamomile tea and sat in a corner booth, away from other customers. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since I left my parents' house. I finally looked at it. 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. I scrolled through the texts, each one worse than the last. Mom, I raised you better than this.
Call me
immediately. Olivia, you're being ridiculous. It's just money. Family comes first. Dad, your mother is crying because of you. I hope you're happy.
I turned off my phone.
They clearly weren't going to listen to reason. Tonight, the tea helped calm my nerves somewhat, but I still felt betrayed and angry. For years, I'd been the family ATM while simultaneously being the butt of their jokes. And now when I was finally about to achieve my goal, they wanted to take it away. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was nearly midnight. I turned my phone back on only to find even more messages. I ignored them all and fell into an uneasy sleep. The next morning, I woke up resolved. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me I'd earned that money and I was going to use it for its intended purpose, buying my home.
I
Blocked their numbers. Temporarily.
I needed space to think.
Without their constant guilt tripping. But the reprieve didn't last long.
By
Mid-afternoon, my phone was ringing with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. When I answered one, it was my Aunt Pam, Mom's sister. Kelly, what's this I hear about you refusing to help? Tyler? She demanded without so much as a hello. So that's how it was going to
be.
Mom had activated the family phone.
Tree.
I don't think you understand this situation, I told Aunt Pam as calmly as I could. This isn't about me refusing
To help.
This is about my family, expecting me to give up my entire life savings. She wasn't listening. No one was. Over the next few days, the calls
Kept coming.
uncles, cousins, even my grandmother, they all had the same message. I was selfish. I was greedy.
I
Was letting the family down. I stopped answering unknown numbers and began blocking relatives one by one.
each.
Conversation followed the same script. They'd start with guilt, move to anger, and end with ultimatums. Not a single person asked for my side of the story. Not one considered that maybe, just maybe, Olivia and my parents were in the
Wrong.
By Wednesday, I was emotionally exhausted. I sat in my tiny apartment. After work, scrolling through social media when I saw it. A long post from my mother. My stomach dropped as I read. Today, my heart breaks for my grandson. All his hard work, all his dreams, crushed because of selfishness. Families should support each other. Families should sacrifice for each other. I never thought I'd raise a daughter who would put material possessions above the future of her own flesh and blood. Please pray for our family during this difficult time. The comments were even worse. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were weighing in, condemning me without knowing the full story. Cousins I'd played with as a child were calling me heartless. Even family friends joined the pile-on.
That
Night, I made a decision. I wouldn't just move forward with buying a house. I'd cut contact with the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally but clearly didn't. The realization was painful but freeing. I'd spent so many years trying to please people who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be
used.
The next morning I called Janet, a realtor whose card I'd picked up months ago at an open house. Her cheerful voice was a welcome change from the angry relatives I'd been dealing
With
I'm ready to start house hunting, I told her. My budget is firm, but I'm pre-approved and can move quickly. That's music to my ears, Janet replied.
let's
Meet and discuss what you're looking
for.
Over coffee that weekend, I shared my wish list. A small house with a yard, preferably in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but structurally sound. Janet took notes and promised to start lining up viewings. Immediately, house hunting became my refuge. Every evening after work and all weekend I visited properties. Some were disappointments. Water damage disguised by fresh paint. Neighborhoods that felt unsafe were homes that would require more renovation than I could afford. But the process itself was healing. Each house I walked through, even the unsuitable ones, represented my independence and resolve. Meanwhile, the harassment from my family
Continued.
They'd resorted to email. Since I'd blocked their calls and texts, Olivia's messages were particularly vicious, accusing me of ruining Tyler's
Life.
My parents fluctuated between anger and attempts at manipulation. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof because of this situation, or we raised you better than this. I deleted the emails without responding. My focus was singular now. Find my home. 3 weeks into my search, Janet called with excitement in her
voice. I think I found it, she said. It
just came on the market this morning. It's at the top of your budget, but it checks all your boxes. We arranged to see it that evening. The moment I walked in, I knew the house wasn't perfect. The kitchen needed updating, and the backyard was overgrown, but it felt right.
2
bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a small study that could double as a guest room, and a covered porch, perfect for morning
coffee.
What do you think? Janet asked, though my face had already given away the answer. I want to make an offer, I said. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, inspections, and negotiations. The seller accepted my offer with minor conditions, and suddenly it was real. I was buying a house. The closing date was set for 3 weeks out. I gave notice at my apartment, started packing, and tried to ignore the continued fallout from my family situation. My mother's social media campaign had escalated with daily updates about Tyler's devastating disappointment and how he'd have to give up his dreams because of me. What they conveniently failed to mention was that Tyler had options: community college for 2 years, then transfer, scholarships, student loans, or simply choosing a less expensive school. But those solutions wouldn't give them access to my money, so they weren't considered. The day of closing arrived, and I signed my name, what felt like 100 times. When the realtor handed me the keys, I couldn't stop smiling. I had done it. Despite everything, I had achieved my goal. Moving day was the following weekend. I didn't have much furniture, another thing my family had mocked me for, which made the process easier. A few friends from work helped, and by Sunday evening, my meager possessions were arranged in my new home. For the next 2 weeks, I settled into my new routine. The commute to work was a bit longer, but I didn't mind. I bought a few essential pieces of furniture, a proper bed frame to replace my old futon, a dining table with 2 chairs, a comfortable reading chair for the living room. I planted flowers in the small garden bed by the front door. Each small action felt like a declaration. This is my home. This is my life. I choose this. I had been careful not to share my new address with anyone in my family. As far as they knew, I was still living in my old apartment. I'd stopped responding to their messages weeks ago, and the silence had been blissful. I'd finally begun to heal from their betrayal. Then one Tuesday, as I was leaving work, I stepped out of the office building and froze. There, parked directly in front of the entrance, was my parents' sedan. My stomach dropped as I saw 4 people standing beside it. My mother, father, Olivia, and Rick. I considered ducking back inside the building, but they'd already seen me. There was no escaping this confrontation. I took a deep breath and squared my shoulders, preparing for battle. Kelly, my mother's voice was stern, like I was a child who'd skipped curfew. We've been trying to reach you for weeks. I stopped a safe distance away from them. I blocked your numbers for a reason. I have nothing to say to any of you. This is ridiculous. Olivia stepped forward, her designer purse swinging from her arm. You can't just cut off your family because you don't want to help. I'm not discussing this here, I said, glancing around at my coworkers who were exiting the building and watching our exchange with curious eyes. Well, you won't answer our calls, so you've left us no choice, Dad said, his face flushed with anger. This is important family business. The deadline for Tyler's tuition deposit is next week, Rick added, crossing his arms. We need to make arrangements. I almost laughed at their
audacity.
After weeks of harassment, they still believed they were entitled to my money, that I would eventually
Cave to their demands.
I don't know where the money will come from, I admitted, but it won't be coming from
me.
I bought a house. The deal closed 2 weeks ago. The shock on their faces was almost comical. Mom's mouth hung open. Dad's bushy eyebrows shot up into his receding hairline. Olivia looked like she'd been slapped. You bought a house? Mom stammered without telling
Us.
Why would I tell you? I asked.
So,
You could try to stop me. So you could guilt me into giving that money to Tyler. Instead, you selfish bastard. Olivia hissed, stepping toward me. You knew how important this was for Jack, and you went and spent the money anyway.
I
Didn't back down. It was my money, Olivia. I worked for it. I saved for
it.
I sacrificed for it. While you and Rick were taking vacations and buying new cars, I was working extra shifts and shopping at thrift stores. You don't get
To call me
selfish. A security guard from my building approached us. Is everything okay here? He asked, looking directly at me. I recognized him as Mike, who always gave me a friendly nod in the mornings. We're fine, Dad said gruffly. Family discussion. Mike ignored him. MS. Wallace, are these people bothering you? I hesitated for only a second. Yes, they
are.
I was just leaving, and they were. Just going like hell we were. Olivia snapped. We're not done here, Kelly. Actually, we are, I said, a sudden clarity washing over me. We're done.
Completely.
I'm cutting ties with all of
You. Don't call me. Don't email me.
Don't show up at my workplace.
If you
continue to harass me, I'll get a restraining order. You can't be serious. Mom gasped. We're your family. Family doesn't do what you did to me, I said. Family doesn't mock you for years and then demand your life savings. Family doesn't turn relatives against you when you refuse to be manipulated. Mike stepped closer. Folks, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the property. This isn't over. Olivia threatened as Rick pulled her toward their car. You can't just walk away from family. Watch me, I said, turning to walk to my car. My parents hesitated, confusion and anger battling on their faces. Kelly, please. Mom called after
me.
We can work this out. I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove to my new home, my sanctuary. For the first time since the family dinner weeks ago, I felt truly
free.
I had stood my ground and the world hadn't ended. The guilt they'd tried to saddle me with slipped away. With each mile between us, autumn passed into winter. I decorated my house for the holidays, my first Christmas in my own home. I hung a wreath on the door, put up a small tree, and strung lights around the windows. I hosted a small dinner for friends from work. No drama, no guilt trips, just good food and laughter. I hadn't heard from my family since the confrontation outside my office. The silence was healing. I started therapy to work through the years of manipulation and emotional abuse I hadn't recognized until now. I joined a hiking club, took a pottery class, made new friends who didn't know my history or my family. Then one cold January afternoon, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up.
Aunt
Kelly, the voice on the other end, was hesitant. Tyler, I hadn't expected to hear from my nephew. Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I wanted to talk to you, to explain some things. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown the next
day.
I arrived early, nervous about what he might say. When Tyler walked in, I was struck by how much older he looked than the last time I'd seen him. Thanks for meeting me, he said as he sat down across from me. Of course, I replied. I've missed you. Tyler's eyes dropped to his coffee cup. I want you to know I never asked them to demand money from
you.
That wasn't my idea. I know, I
said gently.
I never blamed you for any of it. Mom and Dad wanted me to go to Westlake because it's prestigious. They kept talking about the connections I'd make, how it would look good for them to say their son went
there.
He sighed, but I got a partial scholarship to state. It's a good school, and with my scholarship and working part-time, I can manage it.
We
talked for over an hour. Tyler told me about his classes, his roommate, his plans for the future. He was thriving despite not getting the expensive education my sister had demanded I fund. I don't want you to think I'm on their side, he said as we were about to leave. What they did wasn't right. Thank you for saying that, I replied, genuinely touched. And for what it's worth, I'm really proud of you.
We hugged goodbye and I
watched him walk away, feeling a mixture of sadness and hope. I'd lost my parents and sister, but perhaps I hadn't lost everything. Spring arrived, and with it came my housewarming party. I'd put it off through the winter, focusing on making my house truly mine. I painted the walls, planted a garden, found furniture that suited my style. Now it was time to celebrate. I invited friends from work, my hiking club, my pottery class. No family, no relatives, just people who accepted me for who I was, who didn't judge me for my choices or try to use me for my savings. As I looked around at the smiling faces in my living room, I realized I hadn't lost a family. I'd found a better one. People who celebrated my successes instead of mocking them, who offered support without expecting payment in return.